all my plan is to edit is to like clip the beginning and clip the end, and then just start. So,
I'm fine with that. I don't hesitate in talking. That's my strong suit.
yeah, awesome. Um, maybe I'll just leave that in. Maybe we'll just start. Maybe we've already started.
Yeah.
So, Joshua Dairen, good to see you again. Last time I saw you, we were having breakfast in Missouri
Yep.
in the Show Me State, and we were talking about ghosts and haints because you're from the South.
Yep. Yeah. It was kind of a haphazard thing too, because I went to the breakfast place. I just was eating by myself. Like that was my intention. Just go get some food and call it a day. Um, and then I kind of got usurped into your conversation, and I was happy to do so because I was just going to have a lonely breakfast. So it worked out.
Yeah, I mean, I've traveled enough alone over the years that like I don't eat alone. Come hang out, right? Come meet like-minded weirdos, and
Yeah.
that's the cool thing about the paranormal is I've always felt like it's like we know there's all kinds of political stripes in that audience,
Yeah.
right and left, and yet we don't talk about it, which is good. Like that's a good thing, right? We just talk about our favorite subject, and somehow we can leave all that other crap behind, which seems harder and harder to do these days. You could be like, "Oh, I was eating a sandwich." Oh, you would eat a sandwich, like yeah,
Yeah.
right? You're like, "Oh, come on, how's that loaded?" So, were you born and raised in Alabama?
Yep, I was born and raised in Alabama. My home is Auburn, but I know some people will say, "Oh, but your shop is in Opelika." It's the same city. We literally call it Auburn Opelika because you have to do your business in both places. So
Got
yeah,
it.
Alabama's my home.
And well, you said your shop. We should probably explain. You sell coffee.
Yeah,
You got a coffee shop. Tell us about the shop. Shameless
yeah.
plug. Why not?
So I own a coffee shop called The Coffee Shop. Very, very, very unique. I know. We have a unicorn logo, which does make us very unique because we're probably the only coffee shop in the state, or really just around, that dares to have something unique for branding. But it works because people know us. They see a unicorn and they say, "Oh, that's the coffee shop."
Yeah.
We've had it since April 2023. Um, it keeps me very busy, very tired, but it's a lot of fun because it very similar to the paranormal. I like to think that it's a good bridge to people and getting to know people that you typically wouldn't have met or talked to, or even found common ground with. So the coffee shop has been very cool to extend outside of just coffee. Coffee is just the medium. Um, and it just bridges the gap between so many. I have so many close relationships and friends from just serving coffee. It's kind of crazy.
No, no. This is actually we're going to tie this together beautifully right now, right? So everybody drinks coffee or cocoa or tea or whatever your
Yeah,
hot drink or cold drink preference is. Everybody dies, right? So
yeah,
we got ghosts and ghost stories in every culture, every language, every nation. And so we've got a few things that sort of unify us and we can sort of leave the other stuff behind. So I think that's great. Um, what's cool about you is that I've been doing this a long time, close to 30 years now, and it's very noticeable to me who's missing from the conversation. Has been right along to the point where like, why is that? I know there's ghosts in every culture. Why are there not more women on the stages at these things, right? Why is it just white guys over and over and over? And nothing wrong with white guys. I happen to know one, uh, right? But at the same time, like this affects all of us. Why? How did you get into it? What's the thing that drew you into ghosts?
it's that's a funny way to think about it too, because I've been into ghosts my entire life, since the very beginning. I have two canon events that I remember when I was at my absolute youngest, and it was when my parents surprised me going to Disney World, and my ghost experience in my grandma's house. And so from that point, it was always a thing. So it always had a presence. I was always watching documentaries. I was always trying to engulf myself into figuring out like what is this that I experienced. And so as I asked cousins or pastors or my parents or people that I was close to, they never could give me a really good answer. But on the flip side, growing up in Alabama and the country, we have so many superstitions. We have so much lore. We have so many legends. And I noticed that because when we go to family gatherings out in the country, people would always have a story about something scary or spooky. And it was just normal. But if you were to ever start really talking about it, people would shut it down and they didn't want to want to have a conversation about it anymore. So it's not even that, like my community isn't actively involved in the paranormal. I think for one, we've made it a place that doesn't feel safe for us, but other people have made it a space that doesn't feel safe for us because we have so many unique stories that, unless somebody like me or, Jawan or Tani or, somebody of that nature or Juju and all of us, and I can name them because there's so few of us.
Yeah.
Um, um, I think that's when we start noticing, when we start talking to each other, they're like, wow, yeah, we do have kind of a shared experience that's missing in the paranormal overall. And I never really thought that there was a place for me, but it, over years, like I'm 32, I've spent my entire life researching the paranormal. But privately, um, I never thought there was space for me. So it was just kind of like a personal interest. It
Why didn't
wasn't.
why didn't you think there was space for you?
Well, there was no. I never really saw representation.
Okay.
So I would watch, all the ghost shows,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't see myself, except, when they happen to go by like a plantation or something. And then, then we talk about black figures in the paranormal, but it was from the victim side usually. I never saw if really anybody who was like present and there and available, somebody that I could say, oh wow, there is somebody who looks like me who's doing this. They're taken seriously. They have some validity behind what they're doing, and they're doing real research and real things, and they're on TV and they're getting a platform and a spotlight. I didn't have that. And so, I know people feel weird about representation, but representation is really important for pulling the gifts out of other people. So it's not
Right.
even necessarily about just having somebody there just to say you have them there, but it's about establishing people and giving them the platform to allow them to be the bridge to other people like me. Because it took 2016 for me to see the Ghost Brothers on TV and be presented in a serious way for me to even say, huh, I mean, I guess if like the door ever opened itself, that maybe I could do something. And then it took me 6 more years after that moment to even try to do something like that because that representation was still missing.
Okay. So I hate speaking in stereotypes. Sometimes we're stuck.
Yeah.
So when the paranormal really started to blow up, just after 2000, 2004, Ghost Hunters came out, right? It was really starting to blow up. And I was looking at who was becoming really prominent, completely missing not only women and people of color and people of really any other religion other than like white Christian dudes. Um, but also missing was academics, right? Nobody with like PhDs and stuff would touch this because they're like, no, 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 we don't want to talk. My sister, who is a PhD, she's a psychologist, and I've brought her to some ghost hunts, like with family cases and stuff. And I'm like, Sue, just check them out. Like, what do you think? Do you think they're cogent? Are they with us? Or are we talking multiple personalities? What do you think as a legit PhD psychologist? And I would bring her in, and I said, look. Forget if ghosts are real or not real, whatever. They're perceived as real by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And if your client says, I think this is real, you have to deal with that as their psychologist. And her answer was so honest. She said, psychology has fought for over a century to be legitimate, and we're just now getting some legitimacy. If we talk about ghosts, then we're right back to head shrinkers and we're back 100 years ago. I'm like, that's honest. So then I thought about it. So academics are like, we can't talk about that. They'll think we're weird or we're not really smart or educated. And so it's left to like the everyman. It's left to plumbers. It's left to like people that have day jobs, but this is a place where they can be heard and listened to. Which, by the way, sorry for the shameless plug. We're talking about Shadow Zine here. Varla Ventura wrote the Mark Twain story, right, in issue
Mhm.
3, and she mentioned something that it never really occurred to me. The spiritualist movement gave women a voice they never had before. They could be celebrities in a world where they couldn't be any other way.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So this thing, I think sometimes my point is, I think sometimes you got to kick the door in a little bit. You're not
Yeah.
if you wait for the invite, you might wait your whole life.
And I say that all the time too. I'm very big on, you can wait for a door, you can like hope somebody lets you in, but sometimes you just have to either kick the door in, or if that's blocked up and locked up, then you have to just pivot and you have to go and get the wood and you have to build your own door. Because I do believe that destiny is tied to people in a way that can't be prevented, even when people actively try to prevent it. And you just kind of have to go for it. but because, and I do look at it this way, going back to, the Ghost Brothers, they were able to build a door, and it was just a little crack.
Yeah.
But because of that crack, so many other people were inspired, not just people in the Black community, but just across the board, who were the everyman, who could say, okay, like, I don't have to have like a background in this. I don't have to be like, I don't have to fit this certain mold. If I'm interested in this, I can pursue this and then bring my own talents into it. And you,
Right.
you mentioned academia. I did not go to school for history or anything of that nature, but I went to school for communications, which does intersect with a lot of how stories are told. So
Yeah.
storytelling and history do intertwine, even if they are separate sometimes. And I didn't really know if there was a space for me there, because you have people who are, in my opinion, more qualified because they're more book smart, more book studied. But over time, like, it became a thing where I was like, I really have always loved history. I'm curious by nature. If I don't tell the story, I cannot expect other people to do so. And so that's kind of been my stance now. And so I really love what you said about, you got to build the door. If I have the tools to do something, I cannot actively complain about somebody not doing the thing that I'm gifted in or passionate about or talented in or have the tools to do myself. And if I can at least create the concept of the prototype, somebody else can take that ball and go even further.
Sure.
Groundwork that I've helped lay, and I think that opens up a lot of doors for other people.
Absolutely. And I've said too, like all along, what I've been trying to do with Shadow Zine, what I try to do with all the work, right, is that I solicit the voices I don't know. Like I wanted to hear your perspective. I want to hear everyone's perspective. How can we get a complete picture without a complete picture? How you gotta reach out, and so I think it's great. Now, a couple things have happened too. We now live in a time, and you can attest to this, where you don't need a TV network anymore to blow up. You did it
No,
on TikTok and social media. You got hundreds of thousands of followers, and you were just doing your thing, and people caught on to it. And it's just that simple. Like you made a better mousetrap, and people wanted it. I interviewed one time. This was God many years ago. I was interviewing this Scottish historian, Des Brogan, and I'm gonna butcher the accent, but I got to try. He said, lad, history's a damn good story. It just needs damn good telling. And I was like, man, that's good. That's so good, right? Like he's right. And so yes, if you turn history into facts and figures, and this many people died or killed, numbers are cold and meaningless. But the story of one person means something. And because if you care about that one person with their story, then you can multiply by the 40,000 dead in that Gettysburg battle or whatever you're talking about. Then it
yep,
starts to mean something. Numbers are too big. Like you can't wrap your head around 40,000 dead, missing or wounded in the span of 3 days. That's just too much. That's a football stadium. But you can wrap your head around one person who was a husband, a father, a son, a brother, a friend, an uncle, or what have you. And so I think that's amazing. All right, I keep in my head going, I want to hear what happened to your grandma's house before we get too far away. Tell me that story.
so I really I blame my grandma for a lot of it too, because my grandma, she was she's one of those older she was always one of those older women who you knew was like kind of tapped in, but really tried to avoid her family members being there because she was kind of scared of it herself. And so I take a lot of where I am now, trying to strip away a lot of the fear aspect, because I watched her be so fearful of something that she actively engaged with in different ways. But going back to like her house, and this is why, like, it's all hindsight. I wish I would have known. I probably would have pursued ghost hunting a little bit harder if I'd known that I was going to end up here. I was 4 years old. I used to stay with my grandma all the time. She took care of me while my parents were working, so she'd pick me up from school. I'd be at her house all the time. Sometimes I would stay with her. Sometimes I'd spend the night there so she could take me back to school. I never really liked the house, but it was like no big deal. I was a kid. I didn't really care. As long as I had toys and PBS Kids, I didn't care about anything. And but because I didn't like that house, I would sleep in her bed with her at nighttime. And so I would wake up almost like every night constantly. And for some reason, I still chose to sleep at this space, but I think I felt more comfortable being in the corner than like not. So I slept closest to the window. I would wake up in the middle of the night, didn't matter when it was, and I'd see two men talking outside of her window. And I would roll over and I'd tell her, I'd say, hey, there are two men outside your window. And of course, she'd be like, oh, there ain't nothing out there. There's nothing out there. Be quiet, go to sleep. And I was like, okay, but they're still out there. And so,
Yeah. Right.
um, and so I would throw the covers over my head and I try not to think about the two men. They never like did anything. It almost seemed like it was residual over time because I would always see them outside talking. It got to the point where she would literally close her sheer curtains. And there was a street light that used to shine through her window. Um, and so even when she closed the sheer curtains, I would see the outline of the two men talking on the side of her house. And so it never went away. There's no real explanation for it. And her backyard was not designed in a way where two men would be outside her window talking like ever. Well, it comes to find out later, she had experiences in that house all the time. So she would wake up in the middle of the night and she would see an older lady come through her bathroom door with a laundry basket and sit in her chair and fold clothes.
Wow.
And I didn't learn that until like a decade after. And so she had already long been out of that house at that point. And that stuck with me because I never forgot those two men,
Yeah.
but it intrigued me because I would ask questions about it and I wouldn't get answers. And I could tell like that my parents were trying to like avoid having the conversation because it kind of scared them and they didn't want me to go down the rabbit hole. I guess they thought I was going to get like possessed by them or something.
Yeah.
I asked my religious leaders and stuff like that, and nobody would ever talk to me. So I'm curious by nature. I guess you could say I'm a little rebellious too, because that was not good enough for me. And so, I would go and I'd watch every documentary that I'd see about ghosts and paranormal and cryptids and mysteries and archaeology. And it just really captivated me from that point. So I would like to say that's the canon event that built me to where I am now because I still do the same thing.
Yeah.
I was fearful of it. And I guess if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have cared as much.
Fair.
I've always
Yeah.
been on the search for answers since that point.
So, what religion were you raised in?
Christian.
Wh- which team? Come on.
Oh, all of them.
So
I
like,
think
and again, stereotypes, and I apologize, but so I was raised Catholic, right? So we got
yeah,
God and the devil, we got angels, we got demons, we got sinners, we got saints, we
yeah.
got purgatory. Like there's a whole spectrum
And
where it could fall somewhere.
I think that's why I say all of them because I went through so many different denominations that where we got them all. So when I was first growing up, it was kind of hybrid Presbyterian simply because of the school I was going to, but then I was going to a Baptist church. We moved from the Baptist church to a holiness church, which is like those two could not be more separate from each other because holiness churches believe in like speaking in tongues and
Yeah.
prophetic gifts and pretty much like the paranormal, but in church. Like that's what they believe in, which is kind of wild. But
That's the soundbite right there. You just it's the paranormal, but in church.
it's like they went all out. Like if they could have found some snakes outside, I promise you they would have been out there trying to snake do the snake
Snake
miracle.
handling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
snake handling.
Yeah.
And then we went to my stepdad did Church of Christ. We did like for a brief period, like a kind of as we were looking for other churches, kind of went through the Methodist for like a tiny time. Then we ended up going into Missionary Baptist, which is like you have the Baptist principles with some of the holiness principles as well. And so there's so many angels and demons and entities and gifts, and you don't have gifts, you do have gifts, you don't use music, you do use music. There's so much intertwined. So that just really fueled my fire even more because I'm like, if you can believe all of these things,
Right.
then surely the things we don't understand are things that can exist in this world too without being just diagnosed as black and white. And I've always felt that way.
No, that's totally fair. I interviewed a rabbi once, Rabbi Gershon Winkler. He wrote the book Dybbuk, as well as a bunch of other books. Fantastic author, great guy, really interesting. Kabbalah, like not like Madonna Kabbalah, like old school Kabbalah, right? And he talked about how, yeah, no, he's like, absolutely, I believe in ghosts, I believe in the paranormal, I believe in all of it. He's like, but within my belief system, we have tools to deal with it, and so as a rabbi, he's got to say, well, if you're a good Jewish person, this is how these are the tools in our toolbox to talk about that. I think
Yeah.
some religions are like, no, 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 no. We don't talk about anything that falls outside of our control. Like you stick to the path or it's off the path. right? And this is not every church, every denomination, but again, in generalities, forgive me. But so I do think that certain belief systems are like, yes, this stuff is real, but we don't talk about it. We just stay
Yeah,
right in our lane. And I think
yeah,
that discourages some folks from maybe asking questions that they might ask otherwise.
yeah.
It's a whole other leap to say like I'm not
It's-
just going to explore something that interests me. I'm going to potentially be shunned by my community.
And I do think that's part of the problem too. I've wrestled with that, even with like my parents. My parents are actually fully on board with what I do. They always tell me like, make sure you do this and do this. But I try to explain to them the reason why we are so fearful of things we don't understand is because we don't have knowledge, and the knowledge should come from the places where we go to seek knowledge. But if we are boxed out of obtaining that knowledge, we will never, like the rabbi does, have tools in the toolkit to feel comfortable in spaces that aren't normal for us to be in, or deal with things that aren't normal. And so I also hated that as well. That kind of made me a little rebellious too, because I would ask questions and then I wouldn't get the knowledge. So I'm like, well, now I got to go and get it. And you're going to be mad that I'm going to go and get it. And then I'm going to go and tell people, hey, I got this really good knowledge. And it intertwines with everything that we believe. And then I'm going to get shunned for it because why am I bringing false religion into the church? And it's like, it's not false religion. It's just y'all are just avoiding the subject overall. And so I wanted to also kind of soften the blow for a lot of people who knew me as well, where you have the stories because you've told me the ghost stories. If I can show you that you can embrace what you don't know, but not in a way where it has control over you, then you'll feel more comfortable navigating in the space. And if I tell a scary story, you'll say, oh, okay, cool. Instead of being like, oh God, don't bring that up. It's going to follow me home. It's going to be at my house.
Right.
I never believed in that. So, but that's a personal thing. So I'm not
Sure.
putting that on anybody, but because things, that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
No, I get it. That's the thing, right? This is nothing but rabbit holes all around us. And to me, that's part of what I love about this subject is that you if you're bored, you're doing it all wrong. You know?
Very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, yeah. So at this point after doing what you've been doing for a number of years now, what do you hear in a story that makes you go, "Oh, that's for me. I got to chase this one." What's a nugget that hits you in the gut?
I think when I don't feel that there's a lot of meat to the story, I feel like when a story just gets in and gets out, or it's like centered around a trope, I always think that there's more to the story. And I just to put it in the Alabama lens, the one that got me started into actually wanting to go public was because we had a story where it's just like, yeah, that place is haunted. So many ghosts in there. A slave hid in a nook and killed a guy on the 13th, killed the owner on the 13th step, and voila, now you have ghosts. Pretty
Right.
much, like you have the bloodstain. I was like, I mean, that I've heard the bloodstain story so many times that it just made me want to go and research it. And it turns out like the story doesn't match, and it was like a whole thing. So I ended up being able to debunk an entire story and retell the story because the place is haunted, but not in the way that people have told it. And the context was wrong, but the
Right.
context fits because it's rooted in the culture the culture of the time that it was told, as opposed to it actually being based on any factual historical evidence. And so it's usually stories like those that I go after. And I'm not trying to debunk anything, but if I do feel that a story needs to be reframed, I'll try to do that. So I guess another way that I look into if I'm going to tell a story is symbology, and it kind of ties into um, the zine somewhat, because Goatman, when I discovered that Goatman was based off a black man, it made me want to go back to the beginning of that story to see how that story was told from its time. And then having a Christian background, I understand the symbology of goats. I understand what that represents, the red eyes, the hooves. That is another cultural trope that is supernatural and not supernatural all at the same time. And so I'll look into stuff like that to see if there's something that I can inject here that can help kind of return that story a little bit to make people aware that symbology can also dictate the direction of a story, even if it's real or not. It just depends on who told it.
One of the themes that comes up again and again in paranormal, right, is that you got an old building, people hear footsteps, they're hearing sounds or whatever, something's knocking in the night. No one's really doubting that. Lots of credible people have reported the same thing,
Yeah.
but we want to put a name on it so badly, right?
Yeah.
And when we put a name on it, it gives us a sense of control. It is a completely false sense of control. Because like and I think about in Virginia, right? How many bed and breakfasts say George Washington slept here? And they're
Yeah.
haunted. And they're all haunted by George Washington. Right? You're like, wait, he was here one night, like back in like 1785 and he's going to haunt here forever and but oh, he'd never heard us and he's famous. So how great is that? You can spend the night with George Washington's ghost. It doesn't mean it's true. And one of the themes that came up again and again in your zine, and I thought was so compelling, was we do want to put a name on every ghost. Of course we do. That helps give us some sense of closure. In the case of some of these black ghosts, the name was never written down. We don't have the name, and that's a theme that came up for you again and again. Talk about what that's like, right? With the searching for a name when one can't be found.
Yeah. I think I think it really, these stories, kind of like we've talked about before, like offline, these stories really do serve as a mirror
Mhm.
because if I can't name the thing, then I lose control of said thing. So if we can't name the ghost, we kind of lose control of it. But I feel like the natural human response is to just reject that overall and put something on there. So when you have a ghost that's haunting the mansion in New Orleans, you need it almost in a way, like as a human that's not really being intentional with the story. You need it to be somebody who is tortured and formerly enslaved. Like you need it to be, as opposed to really taking the time to put that mirror up and say, okay, what could potentially be here that's not a formerly enslaved person? Because one, why would that formerly enslaved person stay in a place of torture in a state of rest? That, in theory, as a human, doesn't check out. If I, fell off my bike in a ditch and I broke my arm, well, chances are I'm not going to keep riding my bike there, knowing that the hazard's there, and keep returning to it, and then come back 30 years later and say, yeah, that was the spot where that really traumatic thing happened to me. I'm just going to revisit it, over and over, and I'm gonna stand on the road and I'm going to warn people, hey, broke arm here. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So we don't do that, but also um, to recognize that this could potentially not be what we want it to be means to sit in what it actually was, and that's the story as a whole. And that's a weight to carry because that also charges us with a responsibility past that point to not only retell that story the right way, or reframe it, but to also apply that to every single other story that has those same themes. And we have to, it's a heavy load to carry, but it's one we should, because as fun as the paranormal is, the paranormal also serves as a really unique bridge to connect humans to other humans. But we have to understand the human condition and we have to care about it in order to want to build that bridge. And sometimes that means looking at our ancestors or looking at our current actions and saying, I have to change right now, and be better so that I can be better in this field for other people who are investigators, who aren't investigators, who are going to come across this story. Like it's a big responsibility to carry. And one I don't shy away from. And it's not comfortable and it doesn't make people happy. And sometimes people are in it for a good time, not a long time. But you got to take the good with the bad when it comes to this field, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. One of the things we had talked about is the whole trope of unfinished business, which I believe in truly, but I do think the unfinished business part is us, the living. So, you said why would a ghost haunt a mansion where they were tortured? They're not.
Yeah,
But we keep that spirit around because we need it to make us uncomfortable. We need it. We need it to say like, something really horrible happened here, and we just can't let that happen again.
yeah,
If we forget about it, that's the worst tragedy there could be.
yeah,
And it's not up to you or me what place is haunted. We just hear about it, right? Like
yeah,
we don't make them haunted. We hear a story and we investigate. We check it out. We dig in, and that's the thing too, is that a ghost always has to be set on a stage. And that stage, the dressing of the stage is history first, a location, right? That ghost is from a place. And that place has a history. That ghost is set in a time. And we need to paint that picture or we can't possibly understand it. We can't speculate on motives. We can't do any of that stuff unless you go back and set it in the right time and context. And then at least you're trying. That's connection. That's connecting with the past to
Yeah.
understand the present. And I think that's one of the things you did really well in the zine. And it's something you do on your social media when you're sharing these stories. You're saying like, hey, put this in context. We've been here before. And that's I've admired that for sure.
Well, thank you. And I know sometimes people think it's from like guilt or like they have some weird like political thing that they think I'm trying to do. And at the end of the day, I think if something challenges you to the point where it makes you upset because you're trying to share the human experience, that's a it sounds harsh, but I think it's a personal thing. Like that's a personal problem because usually I don't romanticize anything. I don't add anything extra to these stories. I tell the stories as they come. If there's something there, then the story will tell it. So I don't add anything extra, and the stories tell themselves. And it's one of the reasons why I go gimmickless. I don't do any gimmicks, no bells, no whistles. It's just me, some pictures, if I'm lucky, some video, and just what I've researched. And like, that's the story. Like, I don't need to speak in a spooky voice or like try to captivate people with, like music. And this isn't a slight to anybody. This is just
Mhm.
how I feel like some of these stories should be told because there are stories that I've heard where it's like they got so many things going on. I actually can't follow the story anymore, and now I'm caught up in the LED lights that are flashing all around, and I think
Yeah,
that's necessary for painting the picture sometimes because sometimes you do need a visual. But
sure.
at the meat of it, I try to really connect to the person. So, can you put yourself in the shoes of this person who walked this life and then passed on, and then has remained in the space, or the energy that's been left behind here? Can you connect to that, and then can you change how you're walking and thinking about these stories? And the experiences do change, in my opinion, once you do reframe a story. So while other people are like, oh man, I just feel so sad, or I feel so in a place that's actually happy, well, now because you have that additional context, you can walk that building in a completely different way than the person who's fearful because they feel these things because they feel like that's what they need to feel.
Right.
Um, and that's been a cool thing too, having the opposite experience in some of these places. Um, we actually had a really cool moment in Chicago where we were investigating um, a Masonic lodge, and it ended up being the person who was leading the tours there, like friend. And so it turned something that was like, ooh, this place has some spooky vibes, ooh, to something that was really serious and something that was really grounded, and actually gave the organizer some closure and gave him a new path to explore with that connection because just because we took the time to really try to connect to the spirit of the place in that way. Um,
Right.
and it was really cool. And it was cool to have that positive experience. But it if people can see it as a tool to in like that, I think the paranormal can change, but also invite more people to say, hey, it's not all scary. You can do some real good with this if you are willing to get deep with it.
Something interesting's been happening lately, right? So when I started in this, we're talking the late 90s, right? And I started my website, Ghost Village, and like all this other stuff. And then it just blew up. And then the revolution was televised, right? There was 753 ghost shows at once, I think, at some point. And it got to the point where you get a ghost show, you get a ghost show, everybody gets one. And once that happens, TV is a funny animal. I mean, TV is in the business of selling ads and selling streams and making a profit and has a certain idea of how things should go. And I witnessed the damage TV did. So the upside is, yay, it raises awareness and we're talking about it. That's good. The downside is you go take people on ghost investigations and like it's been almost 6 minutes and nothing's happened yet, and you're like, yeah, that's we could go all night and nothing could happen. That's that you're sort of managing expectations. So now pretty much all those ghost shows are going away. TV's decided they're done with paranormal for now. It'll come back. It always has. It always will. But it's going to be a while. It's going to be a lull. But people are still interested. And but now they're getting it in like 30-second and 1 minute bites from TikTok. They're getting it, from all these various directions. How do we keep people with a 1 minute attention span engaged enough to think about something? And you're probably the best equipped person I know to answer that because you're doing it. How
I,
do you do it?
I will say Well, for one, there's got to be more people who do it for the love of the game. I think
Yeah.
the paranormal is one of the most easily capitalized genres on social media, and you can tell sometimes. Um,
Yes, you
but
can.
I think on the other side, authenticity. I was actually talking to somebody, one of my friends recently, about how at one point, like if you're pushing something that was a minute long, like you are not serious about the craft at all. Like you did not care. You you're just in it for you're just in it to just to get by and like try to steal other people's stuff or or other people's fans. But then we got to the point where long form was rejected. It was shunned. You're spending 5 minutes to do all this when you should be getting this in 30 seconds to a minute. That's crazy. But then you see the social media platforms slowly start expanding those times because more people are slowly starting to get kind of jaded with the gimmick based videos. And this is just in general for social
Yeah.
media.
Yeah, sure.
So now you post something for 16 seconds, people are like, oh, this is one of those like gimmick pages. Pass. Like I'm looking for something real and authentic.
Hmm.
And I think that is how people continue to be engaged because you can always tell if somebody's authentically into what they're doing as well because it might not be as tightened up and buttoned up. The quality is still there regardless of the format,
Yeah.
the way they talk about it, how they talk about it, and it really comes down to the how things are communicated, in my opinion. And also as a communications major, like I am working in news and doing journalism. Like I understand the concepts of like the communication psychology. People want to be connected. So I've been telling people who are like trying to get into social media or trying to get into video making, just to remember that you got to do it for the love of the game. It has to be something that nobody is making you do. It's
Right.
something that you choose to do in your spare time, even when you're not thinking about it. So whatever that is, that's what you should do. And then when you get there, don't get lost in um, how you're going to captivate people and keep them there. Just get lost in the art of storytelling
Yeah.
because you authentically present yourself to people and they'll authentically want to stay. And then you have to like show you're a real person. So like post a video and like interact a little bit. Like you don't have to respond to every single comment, but when you do respond, make sure you're showing a real person behind that comment.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Yeah,
and
no,
so
I appreciate that for sure. It's you're right. I mean, I think about some of the stuff I've watched, and I hope you're right that attention spans that we got so short that now the only place left to go is to get longer again, where people will read and consume something and actually think about it. Um, I hope, I truly hope, because I'm a,
yeah,
I'm old fashioned that way.
me
I think
too.
about some of I watched a video, and by the way, I'm about to describe like 60,000 videos. Smoking attractive young woman dressed in black lingerie in front of a haunted building going, I just love spooky places. And you're like, well, I gotta listen now, right? I mean, it's just clickbait. And I'm like, come on, really? Like, I get it. She's attractive, she's pretty, she's dressed provocatively, but what does that have to do with the haunting behind you, right?
Yeah.
And
And a
yeah,
lot of that does get lost. And I will say, I thought about doing some of my stories in my shop while I was making lattes or like doing something where I was like walking and talking. And then I realized like if I were to do that, that sets the tone for what I'm doing, period, from that point forward. And so it doesn't also what I think is going to captivate people are people who are able to kind of get out of the one dimensional space
yeah,
and be able to show diversity in their content because like finding the niche is good, but finding a niche can translate to multiple genres of information. And yeah, some people are like all about the paranormal and only paranormal, but I think it would behoove more people to show the other human characteristics and interests that they have.
sure.
Because you can watch that video and then you can go a couple videos down and be like, oh wow, like they're really knowledgeable about that, or oh that they made that look really cool, and wow, this is the full picture of a person as opposed to like a character. Because for me, I want a person. I don't want a character.
Yeah.
And I'm going to draw to the person because that's what I am. That's what I try to reflect. And I think a lot of people are craving that more now too. Um,
Something
um,
real, right?
yeah,
I mean,
something real.
something real in a world where like we don't even know what to believe anymore,
Yeah,
between AI and fakes and everything else, and we're just like, oh, I just want something real. And I think the other part of it too is that it's okay to not be for everybody. No one is, right? Like just if you're like, no, I need 10 seconds of like a girl in lingerie in front of a haunted place, it's all good. Joshua's not your guy. Like,
yeah. I'm not gonna find it on my
yeah,
page.
no, that's not what he does. And that's okay. Like that, nor should you. I don't think, no offense, I don't think you'd look great in lingerie. I mean, I mean, but but you know what I mean? Like it's okay to not be for everybody. It's okay to just be like, this is what I do. And sometimes you got to let your audience find you.
Yeah.
Like you raise the flag and you see who salutes, and it might be 5 people, it might be 5 million, and you just don't always know. But like you said, you do it because you love it, and you keep doing your thing.
And there's two things about what you said too that's super important. I think not chasing numbers. People get lost in numbers. Numbers are only the value metrics are only good for brands and companies that you're going to work with. Other than that, like if you impact one person, you've, in my opinion, you've done your job. But
Yeah,
also something that one of my inspirations has always said is if everybody is your audience, then nobody's your audience.
yeah,
And that has stuck with me. So that kind of taps into that authentic lane. Like you can reach everybody, but everybody's not going to be who you should be appealing to because you're going to lose what you do for the love of the game in the process.
right on. Well, hey, the zine, your zine, there it is. Shadow Zine, Southern Haunts, a Black Perspective. We've already getting some great comments. They're on the website. People saying you really gave me something to think about. Really provocative. It's been great feedback so far, and it was awesome to have you do an issue. So I really appreciate it, Joshua. Thank you
Thanks for letting me
for
do that. It's
sharing with us.
started a journey of me actually writing a full book. So
Yeah, it's
that's needed, I think.
oh well, then I apologize for that because I can tell you as someone who's written some full books, it's awful. The process, like every bit of it.
I'm
It's
not looking forward to it. I'm excited to do it, but God, the way I'm gonna do it, like it's gonna suck. But when it's done, it's gonna be great.
I tell people writing a book for me anyway, no, and I mean this truly, is an exorcism. Like that's what it is. You get an idea and you're like, oh yeah, I got to do something with that. And then if that idea just keeps gnawing at you, it'll start to haunt you. And if you let it keep haunting you and you still don't do anything with it, that's going to turn into a demon. And the only way out is to be like, okay, you beast, I'll let you out into the world. And it's a grueling amount of work for very little money. And I can't recommend enough that you pursue anything else. But if there's no other way, if I can't talk you out of it, then I truly do wish you the best with it. And I
Yeah,
mean that.
it's already there. It's at that point.
Yeah.
This is why I went ahead and just jump the ship. I just got to go ahead and do it because it's gonna haunt me if I don't.
I respect that and I understand. So
Yeah, it's
good
pretty
deal.
rough.
Joshua, thank you for the zine. Thanks for chatting with us. This was
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm
And
glad to always run my mouth.
yeah. All right, we'll talk soon.
All right.